It's part 10 of the Maratha Confederacy Abridged. In the previous part we captured Morocco, then we had to defend it. When Mysore cheekily invaded, also the Italian states invaded nearby, we took all that down. In the meantime we had Venice under siege, but they appeared with a new army to challenge the siege, so it's time for a decisive battle. We're fighting against 3 armies, so we need to take reinforcements into account for this one. That's why I started facing backwards in my deployment zone, thinking they might be coming onto the field right behind us with their force that was from the siege. But they didn't, so we need to quickly reposition. And yes, we'll just need to keep in mind that there is a stack coming at us from the front that we need to hold off while we deal with the reinforcements to our flank and rear. Also, there's another enemy army coming in towards the enemy's rear, so they'll have some reinforcements coming on for later, basically. So first things first, we start moving towards the reinforcement point. The early cav are just going to slam into our cav, we'll have a straight up melee. Our sword cav, by the way, are actually really good. I checked their stats. They are an elite unit, so they're actually much better than like Regiment of Horse, just in a straight up melee. So we can just beat them without any particular fancy charging right there. Then we move on to the exact reinforcement point to take things out as they come on, like these guns. But we do need to get out of the way to kind of allow the enemy to come onto the field, since if we fight them at the line, a few guys will stay outside of the line and stop the enemy unit from technically coming into the battle, which causes all sorts of issues. In the meantime, we're going after their army in their original deployment zone to keep them off our backs. We sent some troops there to attack their general, and here I am just generally slamming into the enemy's stuff. They have a lot of militia and a lot of conscripts, things that seem like they'll be easy to rout, and with the general kill going down the side there, this is going to be the time for it. So we're just going to try and drive them off the field, but we don't have enough stuff to clear out all of the first army. So while I have this stuff here gradually killing one unit at a time as they come onto the field, we are going to risk being rear attacked by the remnants of the original army still advancing at us. But for that, well, of course, there is only one solution. Grab some more cav and just run at them. I had 2 or 3 units with the reinforcement killing brigade, so they can turn off to attack the guys who are about to rear attack us. That's probably enough to defeat them on its own, but also because we've taken out the enemy's centre and left with our left wing of cav, they now come around from behind, and this is going to turn into an absolute slaughter. We're killing the enemy by the thousands there at that main engagement. Meanwhile, a couple of units, the ones that took out the enemy's general, are kind of just distracting the enemy's other reinforcement army and stopping them from coming into the fight. I am shooting my own cav with my artillery there, as you might have noted. Luckily, we're not seeing any routes. We do have a good general, so it's hard to rout our units. We go on with those 2 units and attack some enemy infantry in this area, but here we get a bit surrounded actually. We take out the infantry, but now there are 2 units of enemy cav who can attack us from both sides. If we turn out though, that won't count as being rear attacks. Looks like we actually have 3 units here, I can't really tell. We've got that detachment that's holding the enemy off and doing okay. The rest of the stuff needs to come over and help, but there was this 1 unit of conscripts that, unlike the others, didn't just rout, even though it's fighting like 10 of our units at this stage. They're having a great time, but eventually we're going to break through there. As for the reinforcement army, they're still gradually filing on, and I noticed here I've been making things worse for myself. What I thought I was doing is having the elephant gunners shoot over the top of my line infantry at the enemy, but it seems they're so inaccurate they're actually just shooting the backs of my infantry, as evidenced by the bodies along the back line. So maybe that wasn't working as well as I thought. Still, it's doing the job. These reinforcement units don't really want to fight here, and they're starting to get pushed off the field with a few units of cav clearing up the mess. Now then, back to the other side of the battlefield, where we're still slamming into things, and more of my cav from the original deployment zone will start coming over to help. So here's another shot of my cav slamming into things, basically just to take out all these units one by one. And again, most of them in this army are militia units, so like right here, they just run away once we make contact, and really that's the end of that. Let's skip then to the result. We lost about 400 troops, the enemy lost over 5,000. This is a devastating defeat for Venice, and realistically that's the end of Venice's chances. Last time we also moved out to attack the Italian states at Rome, and here we are arriving for that attack. They've got plenty of stuff and forts, so we don't want to make the attack. We'll wait and see if they will come out for a sally battle. Now back to Venice. we want to finish things off really. First I move over to the east with my second army to kill the survivors outside of the town from last time, making use of the safe auto-resolve. That was good enough. Then we can focus in on Venice, we get another okay auto-resolve, and there we go, Venice are defeated. That's another enemy off the list. With that done, we don't need to waste any time here. Because they're not a major faction, they don't really resist being occupied, so we can move on out with the armies immediately. So here we're reinforcing Rome for now, but actually I'm trying to walk past to go down towards Naples. We don't actually want to reinforce Rome because that will discourage them from sallying and mean we have to wait for the siege to run out. Anyway, over in the west I'm finishing off the Mysore army we defeated last time. They kept retreating, so we actually wasted like 4 or 5 turns going after those survivors and killing them. So that's going on in the background. Also in the background I have been sending ships around to scout out all of the trade theatres. What I thought was maybe in one of them there wouldn't be any ships from a faction that's hostile to me, but basically the Mughal Empire seemed to have ships in all of them just waiting around, so no cheeky trade I can do so far has been discovered, but we will come back to that. Here's the attack at Naples. We could actually make that attack right now because there are no forts, but I just couldn't be bothered, so I left them under siege. And then in the end turn sequence, we do see the sally at Rome that I was hoping for, so this will mean our mostly cav army has a much easier time. We begin with the ceremonial sacrifice of the mortar teams. It's very difficult being a mortar operator in these time periods because you just have to die before the fight starts, so they try to sally on their own, doesn't go very well. 2 units get killed by cav, another unit walked into the front of my infantry I believe and got shot to pieces. So let's now skip to when some other stuff comes over. Here we've got some line infantry with their flank to my cav. They're trying to shoot at them still, but it doesn't really do much good. They're standing like that because they were facing my cav out on my right flank. Those cav now appear and slam them in the face, and overall that's going badly for them. You can see I'm setting up, stalking a couple more units over here, and the bulk of the enemy are coming towards where my infantry and guns are in my centre. Here we are back out on my right as my little trap springs. There's a whole bunch of impassable terrain here, so this group of units was kind of cut off from the rest of the enemy army, making them perfect targets for just absolutely spamming cav at them and taking them out. Not that there is really an imperfect case for doing that, because it pretty much always works. In this case it's definitely going to work because we have so many more cav units than infantry units that we need to target. So we clear out that side of the enemy army. On the other side of their army, they've got 1 unit of their own cav just kind of chilling. They didn't even seem to notice me rear charging them with lancers here, so that was good. We're going to win that engagement for sure. And then we have to take out their centre. I've already got cav being deployed to do that, and there's a little bit of a line battle over here. It's almost certain that the Italian states, being a small faction, can't fire by rank, so we should have the advantage for line battling, but we don't need to rely on that because we have 10 units of cav marauding about the place. And a lot of these units are going to rout now because their general is killed somewhere in the mess. Don't remember where he was, but that's going to make a lot of those lesser units just go and mean we can do things like this. You just charge the front of the line infantry and they'll be off. I'm pretty sure they don't have bayonets either, or square formation most likely, so we're all good in this battle. Sometime later, once we've done that to all of their units, here we are, just taking out the enemy's artillery. They had a couple of field guns. They spent all of the battle trying to get them out of the fort. Once they were out, they got killed, so that went well for them. Not sure what the plan was, but at least they didn't stay inside the fort and shoot the walls. That's what I expected them to do. Good AI, in a sense. Their result looks pretty good. Now there's not much left in Rome, so we can come back for the auto-resolve. And there's the capture. That means the Italian states are now defeated, which also deletes one of their navies that was blockading one of my trade ports in England. Very handy. We can use that army to move right on and auto-resolve Naples as well. Naples is a nice cheeky capture because you get more than you bargain for, because you also get Sicily, meaning all of this territory down here is now ours. And that's that really. We've ended our campaign in that direction. We can go to the west and attack Sardinia to take a bit of territory from Spain. That's their last bit of territory in Europe, in fact, so it's their capital for all intents and purposes. And you can see immediately what I'm thinking. I'm taking my army in Morocco and thinking of throwing them into some ships to go and do a bit of naval action. There's also, you might have spotted, a Mughal Empire territory in Corsica we could go after. So we'll go for better control of the Mediterranean. However, during the end turn sequence, now we have a big one. Russia declares war on us. We're going to try and avoid this being an alliance war because they're quite well allied, and luckily we do avoid that. So we're not also at war with the Ottomans and Poland, which would mean basically war with the entire European theatre at the moment. So it's just Russia. We don't actually border Russia, so at first that wasn't such a big issue, but it turns out they've actually made some preparations. Normally when the AI declares war on you, just nothing happens afterwards because they didn't think it through. But here they've actually organised naval landings to bypass the fact they don't border us. So here I'm going to make a last stand in West Prussia to try and deny the enemy some units. They're helping me out by advancing with these gun cav on their own, they're mounted Cossacks. You can see there the effect of not having a general and generally being outnumbered. We almost lose the unit of cav to routing just because the enemy shot at us. Dangerous stuff. So while that fight's going on, I've got this other unit of cav that's going all the way around the outside of the map. They have two objectives. One is to make the enemy turn around and not participate in the battle so much. The other is to go for their general, who is back there somewhere. Although in this game, killing a general doesn't matter so much long term or strategically, because you can just spawn a general into an army at any time. So we're not actually denying them leadership by going after their general. It's more about demoralizing them just for the rest of this battle so we can get more kills. And all we're going to want to do is take all of our Lancer Cav and charge into stuff to see if we can grab some kills. And yes, we do get the Lancers into the back of the enemy's general's bodyguard. I also had my guns firing at him earlier, so he's already damaged. He routs, and as he routs away, our cav chase and grab the kill there. Maybe it was a high-ranking general or something, so it might have been useful long-term strategically to take him out. Now with that done, we just need to ram our lancers into more stuff and see if it will grab us some routes so we can pick up a whole bunch of kills. Unfortunately, the enemy's numbers are getting the better of us. They infantry and cav attack our guns, and there's just nothing we can do about that. We've got this little fight going on over in the town where some of my lancers are trying to defeat some enemy horse archers and our mob units that are standing about. Here's me trying to ram my way through a line infantry unit, and you can see they almost rout, but they don't, and because they don't, now we're in trouble because that fight won't go our way. The only thing we can do is try to get out of there and go back in to apply the charge bonus again. We could let the grind just carry on. We might defeat them eventually, but we'd lose our own cav unit in the process. So here I am trying to charge them again. Unfortunately, it doesn't rout them again, and the enemy's cav come over to help. So yes, we are going to be overcome by the fact we don't have our cav blob. It's just cav drips and drabs in this battle, and the enemy have their own cav to counter with. We've got a nice battle with our sword mob against the enemy's line infantry there. I think we ultimately lost that battle, but we did kill about half of their unit. This fight was meant to go better than it is going. I had my gun trash sitting in this building. The building will allow them to trade very well if they're doing a line battle, but the guns wouldn't fire for some reason, so basically we got shot a few times, then the enemy went into the building and we routed on melee contact. And the rest of my lancers, I just kind of sacrificed them near the building, fighting some stuff until we lose. A close defeat. We did take down like 1,000 enemies or something, so that's going to take them a bit of money to get back. Again, they can buy their general and troops back right away, really, so long term, I don't know how effective that actually was. But anyway, let's look at the situation now. So they have West Prussia with that army. They also already had Silesia with an army already here. It's an army of cav. They have been inspired by me, apparently. Is this where we meet our match, the Russian-spammed cav? In the area, all we have are two massive stacks of trash holding down Dresden and Berlin. Since we're not going to have any real units here anytime soon, my best option is to try and really quickly recruit another army from these two settlements and hope the Russians don't attack me too much. So we're going to try that. We've definitely got the money for it. I noticed here, though, that in the corner of the theatre there are two Mughal Empire naval invasions just sort of sitting there. They're facing to the left, which implies they're trying to leave the theatre, but they didn't for some reason. Not sure what's going on there. I have to leave the theatre with my ships to escape the enemy navies. But we're just going to ignore that, as we usually do, and go ahead with my original plan for my troops in Morocco, that being to go and attack Sardinia. We can land and attack right away. The balance bar's pretty in my favour, so I thought let's not bother doing this. There are no forts, so we could easily win with a manual resolve, but we've got stuff to do. So I just auto-resolve it, we win with a whole bunch of casualties. That's that. The most important thing is it means Spain is now defeated, which means their enormous foreign empire in the Americas is going to turn into other factions. We've got New Mexico and Grenada. The theatre's kind of in a state of chaos right now. There are a whole bunch of rebel factions, and this pirate faction who control a lot of stuff is looking pretty good. North America's a bit more normal, with the 13 colonies having just turned into the United States. And it looks like they're not pressing particularly hard against the natives or anything. The native factions are still going strong. And there's Quebec and the old French territories who also aren't doing very much. Maybe we'll go over there and stir things up in America at some point. But for now, we need to rush our troops to our new front line with Russia. We still have military access with Poland, so we can take all the troops who are in Italy and start moving them up. That's going to take a while, of course. In the meantime, we'll just have to see what Russia have for us. Well, it looks like half the stuff from West Prussia decides to come over towards Berlin and just be annoying. But more importantly, another army is landed to the north of Berlin, so even more preparations there. That could be trouble. I did find a trade theatre with no enemies in it at the moment, so I've now got 2 of these nodes under our control. And you can also see I've finally committed to building a nice big expensive fleet with the best ships we can currently make. So we're going to be able to contest things if the enemy start trying to push us off trade nodes, soon anyway. So maybe we will be able to make a ton of money off this. Of course, having the fleets also costs a ton of money. Need to work out what the best setup actually is. On the front lines, I'm moving some of the trash out of the towns now so that we have more space for using our real units in the garrisons, and we also want to leave a bit of space so the freely spawned units can appear as well if the enemy make an attack. What I thought I would do this turn is walk from Sardinia to Corsica. I thought you could walk across this little gap, but I think that's in other Total War games that lets you do that. In this one, they are actually treated as separate islands, so we can't do that. We're kind of stuck here now. Need to bring a fleet back over here to pick up the army again, and then we'll go after Corsica and the Mughal army sitting there. Now for the next Russian turn, another naval invasion comes in. They are spamming troops at us, so we've got 3 stacks walking around. Handily, they're just destroying stuff and causing a nuisance. They don't attack the settlement, meaning that's yet another turn of recruitment that's gone through. We can recruit 9 units per turn between our 2 major settlements here. So already we've got a full stack's worth of real troops popping up on the front line. And our troops from Italy are now moving into position. We're a turn away from being able to attack Breslau, where some of that all-cav army is still there. And that will generally divert the Russians' attention as well. For now though, here's the army I've recruited in this area. We've got a full stack of pretty good stuff actually, just absolutely spamming it out with all of our cash. So I thought might as well just throw these guys at the enemy if they're not going to attack, because we're certainly going to do some damage, and even if we lose, we can just recruit another one in 2 turns time. We are absolutely spamming right now, so we should be able to overcome Russia with human wave assault tactics, which is ironic enough. I guess technically it's actually a horse wave assault. They're doing the actual charging and probably doing most of the damage as well. But you know what I mean, let's just run at these guys. They've got a nice diverse army with lots of different unit types for us to check out. Since the enemy had quite a lot of artillery, I didn't wait around in my deployment zone like I often do. I just charged up both wings of the field. The enemy were charging down the centre. We almost missed each other here. Just catching a little bit of a cav fight between our good cav and their not quite as good cav, so that's fine by me. Here was the real action though, getting all of the lancers to charge into their stuff. They've got this unit, I don't know what that weapon's called, I want to say it's a bardiche, a unit that looks like it probably has a bonus fighting cavalry or otherwise has powerful melee stats, but I think they are a militia tier unit of some kind. Anyway, we charge into them and fight. Looks like we are going to win that cav battle on sheer stats in a grinding melee. But our fight with the guys with the giant 2-handed axe things doesn't go so well. They don't rout when I charge into them, that's all that really means, so I need to run away. I've got this awkwardly set up other wing of cav facing down most of the enemy army. Here's an issue with micro basically, because when you have like 16 units of cav to control, you can't really give them all orders properly in real time, and I always prefer to play in real time. It means a lot of my cav actually aren't doing anything a lot of the fight, or are getting stuck into fights that they should cycle charge but are staying in them for longer than they need to. As you can see, I eventually ordered my stuff to charge forwards and get the main block of this fight going. I thought I might be able to just drive all of these Cossacks off the field by running at them. They do have lower defense stats than line infantry, I remember, but I'm guessing they have higher attack or something. They don't appear to have bayonets, but they do have square, and altogether we don't flog them off the field. Over here things are even worse really. They've got some regular line infantry in square as well, and what we started to see is us actually losing. The plan just didn't work. We ran into them, the enemy didn't lose that much stuff, and then their square started killing us fast. Looks like we've lost half of one of our units of lancers here in that melee before I notice and pull them out. So this is a bit annoying. If the enemy don't get driven off the field by cav charges, then actually trying to grind them down with melees isn't the best idea because we have numerical inferiority, and while some of our stats are quite good, they're not that good. What I needed to do was take out the enemy general to lower their morale, and you can see I did send a unit to go and do this, but again, due to the bad micro, I've ended up just standing next to him. As it happens, he then charges into my unit and fights him, and after like 12 seconds I think it was, he dies. So we accidentally kill the general for all intents and purposes, and that's going to make things way easier. We immediately start to see things routing and some of the fights I've got going end suddenly. So this is go time. Now we want to go back to my original plan of just ploughing all of our 16 units of cav into the enemy and driving them away, and it does work much better. The casualties the enemy took from the first wave have got them on low enough morale that the second wave just pushes them right off the field now that the general isn't also there. So mass routes are plenty, we're going to pick up thousands of kills, and that's going to be easy stuff. There are a couple of units still fighting on, the ones that weren't hit in the first wave mostly. I'm just lazily fighting them from the front like with these Cossacks, and it's just not quite enough to rout them because they can tolerate the morale shock of being charged. In this case, another unit manages to find its way in around the back, perhaps some micro wars going on somewhere. And that's that really, just need to do that to a couple more holdout units, getting the elephants in there as well, that breaks the squares good enough. Here's a nice flank charge on a unit that got stuck garrisoning the walls at the back. The AI likes to have a unit sit in a wall and then forget about it for the entire battle, and this is no exception. We drive them away. Here's the final result. We basically took them downtown. We did take moderate casualties on several particular units of cav, some of them losing more than half their staff, but overall we only lost a quarter of our staff. Unfortunately, some enemy units escaped, so that army's still out there in a weakened form. We'll need to finish them off at some point just to stop them from destroying our buildings, although that said, our buildings in this area are already pretty destroyed at this stage, so maybe that doesn't even matter. Basically, our fight with Russia is probably going to be okay from here because we're going to have a couple more stacks of reinforcements coming in and more stacks just appearing here at Dresden and Berlin. So while there are some decisive battles ahead, we're not going to be taken too much by surprise and caught out of position here by this one, by the looks of things. And if we can take them down, and as long as we maintain our military access with Poland, then we are going to be able to, from here, march to Moscow. So all we need to do is wait for winter, and then it will be perfect. I'll see you next time.